Welcome to Guiding Light's second ever virtual ministry update. I appreciate all of you joining us this evening. Before we get started, I have asked Doug Pansy, who is a former recovery client at Guiding Light, to begin the virtual ministry update with a prayer. Doug?
Dear God, thank you for gathering all of us together today. Thank you for all of our generous supporters, volunteers, and donors for making all of the work that we do possible. Please protect and give comfort to all of those out there who are sick and suffering, and help us to continue on our mission to help those who cannot help themselves. Please help us to continue moving forward in these uncertain times and to be the best possible organization and collection of human beings we can be. And thank you for another beautiful day on this planet. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Well, friends, during the last virtual update that we had, we gave a little bit of an update on how we partnered with the Kent County Health Department and offered Guiding Light as an isolation center for individuals who had contracted the COVID-19 virus. Since then, probably about early May, the health department had decided to consolidate the different locations that they had into one location at Fulton Manor, and then moved out of the Guiding Light building. We then were able to move all of our clients, recovery and back to work clients, back into 255 Division in the Hartside neighborhood and resume programming at our facility. With that, though, was a lot of challenges. Number one, how do we keep the direct care staff that was coming into the building safe and healthy? How to keep current program men safe and healthy? But how to also start redoing intake and inviting new clients into the building who are ready to go through rescue, recovery, and become clean and sober and re-engage back into our community. So leadership kind of met, and they appointed a new staff person. It's our COVID-19 preparedness plan or preparedness facilitator, who implemented a lot of new strategies and new rules for any staff that was to come into the building, but also how would we protect our clients. We have now begun accepting new clients in both our recovery program and in our back to work program, but only at a 50% capacity. So that way that we can safely social distance in the rooms, but also in our chapel area and main eating area. So both the Back to Work program, which is a temporary program for individuals who are homeless and are seeking employment, or who may already have a job but are homeless, can come back in, and they can stay with us for 120 days. We will assist them in finding work. We also have Jeff Courtley and Michael Koss, who are our full-time direct staff, who work with these men individually with finding employment, but also on case management, depending on what their needs are. They may need help with tackling their debt, or they may need help finding housing. They may need help with front of the court issues. So Michael and Jeff both will work with these individuals one-on-one with them for 120 days and help them work on that debt. They are saving 75% of their checks so that when the 120 days is over, they can find and move into sustainable housing. We're also starting to do intake in our Guiding Light recovery program, which is a long-term recovery program for men who are suffering from addictions, be it alcohol or drugs. More information can be found on our website. If you have a loved one, or if you'd like to support one of these programs, you can visit our website at guidinglightworks.org, or you can feel free to even give us a call at 616-451-0236 to learn more about the intake process and about either the Back to Work program or the Guiding Light recovery program. With this pandemic, Guiding Light, as well as you, every single person, has had to make some amazing adaptations and changes to survive, in essence. Moving our men out of our building in March, offering programming remotely at Iron House and in hotels, has built up some extra expenses that we never thought that we never planned for that we would have. But we've adapted. All of our staff, except for very key direct staff, are working from home. We are working hard to ensure that all of our processes are being done with excellence. We are held accountable to you as well as to our board to be fully transparent. And you can see all those numbers and that impact that you are doing to keep us alive and running on our website on the impact page. On behalf of the executive director and our board, I want to say thank you. Your continued support and the gifts that you donate to us have kept our doors open during this pandemic. Today, we can still provide the essentials, food and shelter, but we're also able to provide faith and hope to those who need it the most in our community. I want to say thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce you to Craig Wassenaar. Craig is also a former recovery client who is now our intake manager for recovery and has also taken on the daunting role as our COVID-19 preparedness facilitator. I have asked Craig to join us to kind of share a little bit about what the protocols are, but also to share how the men are faring during this time while at our building at 255 Division. So Craig, I want to say thank you for joining us in our virtual ministry update. First off, I'd kind of like to know how difficult it is to try and prepare a stringent COVID-19 preparedness plan for Guiding Light.
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was rather difficult. It was a situation in the world that none of us had experienced before. So it was a little bit of an unknown event going on. So there was some difficulty there. But as time has gone on throughout the pandemic, we've gotten more comfortable with protocols, more aware of what other people are doing in related to COVID preparedness, and really working with community resources to figure out a great plan to keep people safe. So it's gotten much smoother as everyone in society figures out how to deal with the pandemic.
Okay. Now, how were you coming up with some of the original protocol? What were you utilizing to create that protocol?
To create that original protocol, we were leaning heavily on the CDC and other government resources to see what they had recommended in terms of staying safe within the COVID pandemic at the beginning. And then as the pandemic's gone on, we've continued to utilize those resources, but we've also picked up some best practices from similar facilities that operate and do things similar to what we do, and really work together to see what's working well for them and what's not, and maybe incorporate some of that into our own strategy.
So if a gentleman calls and is interested in either the back to work program or recovery, what is the initial protocol that Guiding Light is doing for these new intakes?
For the initial intakes, we look at what they've been doing in the last couple of weeks, what cities they've been to, how they move about in the area. If we feel like they are at a higher COVID risk than most of the population, then we request that they get a COVID test before coming into the facility. If they're at a lower COVID risk, then we allow them to come into the building and we put them in a more isolated area of the building. And we take them to the Kent County Health Department for COVID testing on their first day here. And then we keep them a little bit isolated until we get their COVID results.
Which is about 72 hours that we get those results?
Yes, we get the results in about 72 hours.
Okay. So while they're in the building, after that isolation and the gentlemen are part of the programming, what is kind of the protocol inside the building to keep everybody safe?
To keep the clients safe, the first thing we do is any staff coming in from outside that serves the clients, we require that they wear masks. And we only allow staff to come in when it's essential for them to come in. So if we have some administrative staff that can work from home, we strongly recommend that they do so. And so we start there. And in terms of the client's movements around the facility or what we do to keep them safe, we require that they wear masks because we do have staff coming in from the outside here. We require that clients wear masks when they're within 6 feet of each other. They're required to wash their hands frequently throughout the day and document hand washing. We do temperature checks twice a day for all the clients. In certain areas like food service lines and lines by the front desk, we have placards on the ground, making sure that people line up 6 feet apart.
And do they get to eat together? Are they like at lunchtime dinner? Are they all in the same space but don't socially distance then?
When they're eating, they're separated when they're eating. So we keep that, we make that a safe space for them to eat. Some of the clients eat in their room. Some gather in a much larger common area where we can place the tables 12 feet apart while they're eating, and they eat individually at a table.
So how are, so I know with recovery that a lot of the part of the programming is that they're meeting with spiritual directors, or they're having case management, therapy, they're doing this, online support groups. I mean, how is that different than what they used to do? Kind of describe what the day is like for programming compared to what it used to be like.
The programming's a little bit different today than it used to be like. The case managers still come in and meet with the clients and guide the clients through their 4 months here. But some of the other one-on-one sessions they would have with spiritual directors or therapists, those are done via Zoom in order to limit the traffic that we have in the building and just give our clients a safe space and limit their potential exposure to COVID.
Okay, and how about Sunday church service?
For Sunday church service, we have the men Zoom the church services or connect with the church's website, where most churches are providing an online stream for their websites. Most churches are providing an online stream for their services, and we have the men connect with those on Sunday.
Okay, and can you kind of describe how some of the emotions or feelings? I know that especially in recovery, when people have been going through addiction, they tend to have isolated themselves. And now that they're coming in, and I know that they're safe with us at Guiding Light, but how do we work with them to kind of help with that overwhelming sense of I'm being more isolated?
Yeah, the first couple of days can be challenging because it does feel more isolated. We do things like we place the isolation rooms near some activity, near some of the typical client rooms where the people in isolation can hear what's going on, and we can talk from outside their room to the clients and provide them some interaction to make it less isolated experience. And then once the clients get beyond isolation, operating in the COVID environment, there are certain barriers to connection. There's face masks that we have to wear. There's people Zooming instead of being in person, and that can be challenging when you go through a 4-month treatment program because the connection, it isn't the same as it was before the pandemic. So we acknowledge that as staff, and we talk about it in our individual sessions with the clients, and we make sure to acknowledge that things are a little bit different right now than they were before the pandemic, which is something that all of society is dealing with. And so we work through the emotions that come up related to that with the client.
Okay. Well, one thing I heard that I think is wonderful is that the men in recovery do go and visit the men that are at Iron House, which is our sober living apartment complex. So they're getting some interaction with individuals who have been in their shoes and are now kind of getting re-engaged back into community. But it sounds like those gentlemen at Iron House are also coming and visiting the building periodically. Is that the case?
Our interaction with the men at Iron House is that we visit them every other week on Saturday evening, and we have a 12-step recovery meeting with them, and we go hang out at the sober living community, and we connect with those men that have gone through the program and gotten to the other side of it, and have similar kind of goals and values and lifestyles that these men in the program are working towards and working through. So they're able to have that interaction with them. They don't come down to the facility. We try to keep the facility, or the Iron House men don't come down to the facility. We
Okay.
try to keep the facility pretty COVID free. But on the weeks that we don't go to Iron House, on those Saturday nights, the Iron House men do Zoom in and do a speaker meeting, and they talk to the people that are currently in the program about what their journey was like going through the program, and what life was like before getting to the program, and what life's like now at Iron House. And it really gives the men in the program a lot of hope as to what the future can look like for them.
All right. Well, Craig, I want to say thank you very much for joining us, and we hope you have a good day.
Thank you, Starla.
All right, everybody. A ministry update from Guiding Light would not be the same without a personal testimony from one of our past clients. So I'd like to introduce to you Jimmy Schocke. He is a former client from our recovery program. Welcome, Jimmy. I really appreciate you taking the time. So you currently are living at Iron House right now, our sober living apartment complex, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
How long have you been living there?
I moved here on February the 7th this year, 2020.
Okay, so just before all the fun excitement happened with the
Yeah.
COVID-19.
Yeah, just about a month before.
Well, I'm going to have you start and share a little bit of what was your life like before you even came to Guiding Light?
Well, I guess, how far do you want to go back?
It's really, what really was happening in your life that made you decide you had to come to Guiding Light, or that you needed help?
Okay, well, I've battled alcoholism my whole adult life. There was different times in my life where I guess I realized, but then kind of was in denial too. And the last thing that happened is I had lost another job. It was a really high profile, high paying job. And I had the opportunity to start another job, but I couldn't stop drinking. And every time I stopped drinking, I got really sick. So when I wasn't able to make it to that job, I made a decision that I needed to get some help. And actually, I went to another recovery program on the east side of the state where I'm from. And while I was there, heard about Guiding Light and decided to go from that facility directly to Guiding Light.
Now, were you homeless at the time, or were you actually still had a place to live?
No, I had my own home. I actually signed off all the power of attorney and sold my home while I was in foundations in Guiding Light.
Okay, all right. So when did you come to Guiding Light? About what time frame?
My first day at Guiding Light was July 3rd of 2019.
Of 2019, okay. And when you were on the east side of the state, how did you hear about, how did you hear about us? Was it
I heard about you while I was at another facility. So
Okay.
I was at another facility, and the counselor there, I knew that the short-term program wasn't going to be enough for me. I had done that before in my life, and it didn't stick. And I just knew that if I went back home, that I would end up drinking again. So I wanted something long-term, and I guess I just made some decisions to really go all in.
What was your first thought when you walked in the door at Guiding Light?
I was very nervous. I remember being really nervous. I also remember everybody being very friendly right out of the gate, like the people that were at the desk, the man that was at the desk. And then I met Seth right away, who was the intake manager then. And other than that, I guess I thought about leaving quite a lot at first. While I was sitting in the probationary period, sitting in the blue chairs, I definitely had some thoughts about leaving, but I stuck it out.
So what were those, or can you share, what were those fears when you were sitting in probation?
Yeah, I guess the fears of the unknown. So for me, coming from the other side of the state, I guess I realized that there's been other men through the program that have, I guess, uprooted their entire lives and decided to come over here. But that was a tremendous step for me. That was something that was, not having any family, any friends, not knowing this is the first time I've ever even been to Grand Rapids. So I had no idea what it was like over here. And I guess mostly it was about fear of being alone and having no support at all or anything like that. And really, if I'm being honest, probably not having those people that would let me get away with some things.
Okay. So either Brian or Seth gave you the acceptance that you had been accepted fully into the recovery program. How did that feel?
It felt great. So especially because, you know, there's a couple of different interview processes during the probationary period, and I felt like neither of them went well at all. Like there were some tough questions being asked for sure about how committed I would be and things like that. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get accepted or not. But then Brian is the one that came out and shortly after our last interview and told me that I was going to be accepted and I could grab my stuff and come on back. So that was really cool.
So tell me, I know it's like 1 month into the program when you get that picture and you make that commitment statement. And I was looking at that earlier. What's in your head when you try to create that commitment statement for your sobriety?
Longevity. In a
Longevity.
word, I guess in a word, that would be longevity. Something that I can have as a mental note, I guess, to keep me grounded or to help me remember why I'm here and what I'm doing.
So what were some of the hardest parts of the foundations phase? And then what were some of the most memorable that you think will stick with you for the rest of your life?
So I think for me, without a doubt, the hardest part about the foundations part was the vulnerability piece. And I also believe that is the part of it that's going to stick with me the longest too, or that probably has made some permanent change, because I started to realize that by being vulnerable and things like that, you could actually get a win. You know, you're doing some things that you didn't think you could do and you were very afraid to do, and then when you come out the other side of it, I think you're a lot stronger for it.
So you did your foundations phase, and then you can start looking for work, and you are working full time.
I am.
You are, yep. And then you moved in, you said in February. So kind of describe what your life is like now.
So, well, it's a little bit different with COVID being the way that it is. So when I first got here, I had 6 weeks before the COVID thing really started. So, and that was really just in that time frame, just kind of staying to that structured plan that I was recommended to put down on paper, like which AA meetings I was going to go to and that kind of thing. But then when COVID happened, there was a lot of downtime, especially because I got laid off only for a few weeks, thankfully, but I did get laid off initially. Now that I've been back to work for a long time, I just have a basic routine and basic schedule. I mean, I go to work every day and I exercise every day and ride my bike as much as I can. The community out here has been really great for me. There's a group of guys that really like to golf. And there's a group of guys that like to mountain bike, and I do both of those things. So it's been an experience for sure.
And it's a sober group, so you're all kind of supporting each other and living together. It's an apartment complex, but you're all together and sober and part of a community. That's great. So I hear that the recovery gentlemen at 255 Division are able to come visit you guys every couple of weeks. Have you been a part of any of those visits?
Yes, I actually went home for during one of those. I was spending some time with my family, but I've been to every other one that they've been out here, and it's definitely been good, because when I was leaving 255, I knew that I wanted to still be a part of the program as much as I possibly could, and that means for me it meant going there on the Tuesday night meetings, and then like sometimes I would just take the bus there and just hang out for a little bit and talk to some people and stuff like that. So not being able to do that definitely changed some things. So it's pretty good to be able to at least try to reconnect in some degree.
Can you touch a little bit about your faith?
Sure.
How was that at Guiding Light? What did you learn? How has that impacted your faith?
So my faith prior to Guiding Light was virtually non-existent. I come from a family who, albeit is Christian, but not I guess you wouldn't say very devout, but less my grandmother. My grandma was a very devout woman, and she partially raised me. So I was familiar, but not devout myself. When I came to Guiding Light, I guess I started I guess I was very desperate for change, right? So I started to be really open-minded, and once I had that open-mindedness, and meeting with Larry, who was my spiritual advisor, who did a great job, I started to explore that and what I thought and different things like that. So actually, I was baptized this year, and my faith is without a doubt stronger than it ever has been. But I think it's really kind of a cornerstone of who I am too.
That's wonderful. That's really great to hear. Is there anything that you want to say to the donors or even to staff at Guiding Light?
Well, for the staff at Guiding Light, I just want to say thank you. There's no doubt about that. I firmly believe that I've made some changes that, as long as I continue to do the things that I was taught and that I've learned about myself, I can remain sober for my life as long as I continue to do those things. The staff at Guiding Light has been absolutely amazing. Even now, I still talk to Brian every now and again, and I see Seth all the time. So it's definitely, they're still a part of my life, and I hope that they continue to be a part of my life.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope that you have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Starla.
Right. Well, I want to say thank you very much for joining in this evening for our second virtual ministry update. I also want to thank Doug and Craig and Jimmy for being willing to spend some time with me. We are all living on very unusual times right now, and we all have to adapt. I want to share a quote from Vicky, who is one of our staff members, who is also working remotely from home, that was very touching. I have faith that someday this will be over and we will all look back on this time and wonder, what has God shown us? There's much to improve upon, but I am thankful for His amazing grace. We will not be discouraged. Thank you for being here beside us. For those of you who would like to donate and help the men at Guiding Light with food and shelter, but also with new faith and hope, you can visit our website at www.guidinglightworks.org. I'd like to end with a few of my favorite inspiring Bible verses that I feel fits this time. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. And then trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Proverbs 3:5-6. Again, I want to thank you so much for standing beside us, for standing beside the men, and supporting us in this unusual time. You have a blessed evening.